Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Lindsay Cadigan. As a proud Minnesota native, Lindsay began her career in professional sports, which led to a confetti-filled path and special events spanning more than 15 years. Her passion for celebration and storytelling shines through in everything she does, from her role as former director of events at Boston Magazine to founding Cadigan Creative, a boutique firm specializing in nonprofit event strategy. Lindsay is the author of the joyful picture book series, The Confetti Yeti, and is currently working on her debut chapter book series, Patty the Party Planner, set to release in 2026. She lives in Boston with her husband and their energetic twin boys, where she's known for turning even the simplest coffee date into a meaningful celebration. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited to have you on to share all about your career journey that led you to where you are today with being a children's book author and now a chapter book series. And that's where I'd love to start, is have you share more about yourself and what you do.
Sure. My career has been an exciting, interesting path that has had, many, many changes throughout. But I've spent the last 15 plus years in the events industry. And before diving into events, it started in professional sports. I grew up in Minnesota. I went to school at the University of North Dakota, ended up working for the Minnesota Timberwolves right out of school. And then I ended up taking a position with the Boston Bruins, which led me to Boston. So I worked there for about 4 years, was there during the cup run and all of that excitement when they won back in 2011, and then found myself doing events in healthcare. And it was 2014 when I was kind of diving into the world of events when I was home in Minnesota and I was speaking with my mom. And she said, I can't believe you're doing events. Like, would you ever thought you were doing this? And I said, no, because growing up, I was in school and I never really felt like I had a thing. I wasn't good at sports. I never made the dance team. I never was in choir as much as I love to sing. Like, I didn't really have anything, but I was always really creative. And so I said, I wish there would have been a children's book that talked about parties or celebrating, and maybe I would have found this career a little bit earlier. And she said, well, why don't you write it? And that just kind of stuck with me. And we kind of joked about it the whole weekend I was home. And then I thought, maybe I will write a children's book. And I really did not know anything about publishing or the children's book world, and was so excited about the idea of it that I just really dove right in and spent a lot of time learning how publishing works and the difference between traditional publishing, self-publishing, and all of that, and developed this manuscript. Betty the Confetti Yeti was the first book in the series that came out. I landed a literary agent. I was very focused on getting traditionally published, and we went out on submission to all of the major publishers in March of 2020. So here I am with this book about parties, and COVID hits, and it was just like the worst time ever. Nobody wanted to talk about parties of any kind. It got just rejected by in every sense of the word. And they said, oh, it's cute and we love the concept, but we have no idea what's going to be happening over the next couple of years. So after some months of that, I decided that I didn't want to wait after working on this idea that I had had with my mom for so long. And I spent a lot of time researching the world of self-publishing. And I thought, you know what? I think I can do this. I know enough people, I can figure this out, and I am going to put this together and do this myself. So that's what I ended up doing. And I worked with an incredible illustrator, Julia Gorkina. She's based in Belgium. And we had many early morning calls, and she brought Betty the Confetti Yeti to life. And my first book came out in 2022. So as I was doing events and starting a family with my husband here in the city and all of that, my creative outlet was this children's book world that I really didn't even know existed. So it was just this whole new world for me. And it was just the most incredible outlet that I never really knew that I needed or loved. And just am very passionate now about writing in general, of course, but also helping other people bring their own ideas to life. So I've had the opportunity to do some consulting and work with some other people that have their own ideas, and watching their books hit the shelves and come out has been really exciting as well.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I love what you mentioned earlier, how you got the idea because you wish that there was a children's book to talk about your event planning career. And that's so true. There's so many children's books out there that talk about the possibilities that we can like aspire to once we become adults. And so I feel like that's like a typical creative person's thing, is like, if you can't find what you're looking for, why not create it? And that's exactly what you did with your book.
Yeah, no, it's funny because and people say that, like, oh, if you don't see your book on the shelves, then write it. And I
Mhm.
have found that so many people have their own ideas to fill a gap, right? It could
Yeah.
be something that's emotional or personal, or just a fun idea about whatever it might be. It could be an object, it could be about your profession, and how to tie that in a creative way, and to see it kind of come to life is just so much fun. And it has just been one of the greatest accomplishments that I've done in my career. And so I've had a lot of joy trying to help other people do the same thing. But a lot of people get stuck. They have these ideas and they're like, well, sure, I'd love to publish a children's book, but I have no idea how to do that. But there's
Mhm.
definitely a way. So I'm hopefully, as I meet other people and share, the path that I took, hopefully that gets some more books out there, because I feel like every book has a message and can connect with somebody.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned too how when it was March 2020 that you were getting ready to work on publishing the book and the difficulty that you had that led you to self-publishing. I'd love to hear more about the self-publishing journey, about things you learned along the way and advice you could share with our listeners if they're kind of considering going that route.
Yeah, so I just found, because I was so focused on traditional publishing, I was like, oh, I'm not going to
Mhm.
self-publish this. I'm gonna get this acquired by Simon Schuster, and we're just going to the moon. And I just realized as I was going through this, it is so difficult to get in with those publishing companies, and they are the experts in publishing, and they do manage distribution, and there's all of these things. But there was so much that I learned that along the way, where I just didn't want to wait anymore. It's like I had my
Mhm.
idea, I knew what I wanted it to be, but even more so, I really learned that I wanted to have the creative control of what this book is, because this was my idea. It was my idea. It was something personal. And the more I got comfortable, I think, with that, I just decided to go for it. So I feel like, self-publishing for a long time got this kind of stigma as like, oh, you're not really published, like you just did that yourself. But self-publishing has grown significantly over the last decade. And
Mhm.
so the first thing I did is, when you write the manuscript, some of the really great resources that I used is Writer's Digest had a lot of really wonderful free tutorials, some that you paid for. And they were just different sessions that talked about children's books, saying, they have to be less than 750 words. And these are the things to really look for, because these kids are learning how to read, and this is what might encourage a parent to buy a book. And so going on Writer's Digest was really helpful. There was another platform called Readsy. And Readsy is a really great platform where different freelancers can go on, and editors, illustrators, different people can register, like, to be an expert on that platform. And so I ended up bringing somebody on to work on the book to review it for editing. And so I found that person through Readsy, and she was instrumental for many reasons in this book. And so we did 2 rounds of edits and went back and forth on the storyline. And that was really fun to have, like, just a total outsider. It's not someone in your family reading it, giving you feedback. This is someone who had a significant background in Scholastic and all of this experience, who was, spending some time, that I hired to work on this project for me. And it was very reasonably priced. So I worked with her on it. And then I followed her on LinkedIn and saw that she was starting a new job with an illustrator agency called Advocate Art. And she said, if anyone's looking for an illustrator, let me know. So I reached out to her and I said, Christine, I actually need an illustrator for Betty. She said, oh my gosh, how cool would this be if we worked on this together? So she kind of went to bat for me at her agency and said, I know Lindsay is self-publishing this, but if we meet with Lindsay and you're interested, maybe we can link her up with one of our illustrators and do this project together. So that's what we did. They let me, I had to cover the cost of the illustrator, but I was able to pick from their portfolio like 5 different illustrators, and they did all mock-ups of my character, all very different. And
Hmm.
then the last one was Yulia, and she sent this whole spread of Betty, all different types of Yetis and all of the things. And it was like, oh my gosh, she's number 2. She's it. Um, and and they were just these rough sketches, and it was just really, really great. So I worked closely with the Advocate Art on the process and learned that, the first thing you do is you go through, before it even gets to the illustrator, is you do something called scamps, which is almost like rough sketches of every scene. You can do it. Your book designer can do it. They had a team that did it. And so I work closely with them on that. And that really is just kind of outlining the placement of the text, the font, the size. Is it done in a creative way? Is it designed, or is it, a static area? And so I learned a lot like through that process. And then once you get kind of that finalized and locked in, then it goes to the illustrator. And so that's when Yulia put her rough sketches together. And I will never forget seeing the first sketches coming in. And I think I cried because it's like, oh
Oh.
my gosh, this is like actually like a story. And I think one of the best parts of self-publishing, at least for creatives, is I got to have so much say in everything.
Hmm.
So, Betty, I wanted her to wear a belt that had party supplies, and I wanted there to be emergency confetti, and I really wanted her to be a Yeti. I think I got the idea because it rhymes with confetti, but I wanted some sort of mythical creature that both boys and girls loved. I didn't want it to be characterized as like one or the other.
Hmm.
And I felt like I was able to do that because I was self-publishing and because this was something that I was owning the creative for. So I went through that process, and then the book ended up getting completed with Yulia. I found a printer overseas that I worked with. That was an interesting experience, and wonderful. I had a great experience with that, and then got the files all sent over to them, and the books took about 3 months to print and get developed, but had to create a whole website and a launch and marketing and all of those sort of things. But as word started kind of spreading, I was able to sell quite a few books and get them in Barnes and Noble and different stores like that. So you really do have to reach out, and you're doing that even if you're traditionally published anyways. You have to
Right.
market yourself. So I thought, well, I might as well own my idea, have this be the book that I want. I'm keeping 100% of this revenue, like of books that are being sold, even though
Hmm.
it is clearly a lot of work, and distribution is not like something that I am, an expert in. I
Hmm.
just kind of wanted to have that control and learn as much about the industry as I could. So self-publishing was a great path for me. So there's definitely a way to do it.
Absolutely. And I love that you shared and emphasized a few times, which is just having that creative control. I mean, being able to take the story idea that you feel the most passionate about and being able to run with it and writing something that you truly love and not necessarily writing to sell, so to say, which could potentially happen if you were to work with, do go the traditional publishing route. And you also brought up a good point too about kind of wearing so many hats as a self-publisher with marketing and outreach and things like that. And so I'm curious to hear what that was like, what you learned along the way with marketing yourself as an author and being able to really make a big impact for the launch of the book.
Yeah, the marketing was it was really fun. And with children's books, right, there's always a message. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that it worked because with my background in events, here is this character, right? So that has the same that was inspired by, my whole event kind of path. So there was a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I leaned on that a lot. And so I was able to talk about my events, why I did it, and here's this party planning like character. I work closely with the illustrator on just all of like the colors and the, font, all of those sort of things. Um, I wanted it to stick out if it's on a shelf, and I wanted kids to see it and get excited. And then what I wasn't really I didn't really know what to expect. schools started reaching out and asking me to come and do assemblies and different talks with the students. And I wasn't really expecting that. And that
Hmm.
ended up being, and still is, one of probably my most favorite things to do because I mean, you go to these schools and they make you feel like you're Taylor Swift. I mean, it's like hilarious. They're so excited to have someone there and they want to hear all about, the character. And sometimes if you're with like the preschool, sometimes they like think, well, what's Betty's favorite color? And they ask you these questions and I'm like, I
Oh.
have no idea. I'm like, well, it's purple. And what does she do with this? And what does she like to do in her spare time? And they really put you on the spot. It's hysterical. You got to be ready. But I think to be a part of like something in a different sort of setting at school to encourage kids to read and to be excited
Hmm.
about something that you had a hand in, it's really, really special. And so doing the school visits and talking about writing a book and what my favorite books were when I was a kid and all of that stuff with them is really, really exciting and a lot of fun. And so I wasn't really expecting that, but that from a marketing perspective kind of took off in a solid website. I work with the font party. Her name is Misty. She is amazing. So she worked really hard on building a great website and integrating that into Shopify for me, which makes it really, really easy. I had a video that I created with Bunker Hill Media. They're a local team here in Massachusetts based in Charlestown, and they put a video kind of sharing my story. So having like just a couple of those foundational things was really,
Hmm.
really helpful. But I will say that a lot of people either booked me for events or um, whatever it might be because of my website. So the marketing and the website like was really, really critical. And then I have never hired anybody to do social media, but just organic content. Like I don't regularly post. I probably should and do all those things, but marketing has just changed so much over the last 10 years. And it's really just getting your
Right.
message out there and getting it to a targeted kind of demographic.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear, with writing being such a creative profession, like how you handle getting writer's block or kind of being able to be on when you need to be when it comes to writing, and is when you kind of get those moments where you might feel a little bit drained or a little bit not inspired. Like, how do you get past those humps?
Yeah, I mean, and that definitely comes up, and that comes up with like I feel like any kind of job, but especially with writing, you have these moments where you have an idea and you're like on fire. You're like, I have to do this like right now before I lose it. And you hit that stretch. And then when these blocks come up, what I have found is you just take a break. So you
Mhm.
go, you put the computer, or the manuscript, or whatever it is that you're writing, the notebook, journal, napkin, whatever you're writing on, away for like at least 1 week, sometimes two, if you have the
Mm.
time. And if you don't have any time, give it at least 36 hours. Um, because I have found every single time I have stepped away from something, I just take a step back. I'll do something else. I'll put my mind on something else, and then I go back to it. You come back to it with a very different set of eyes. And you're like, oh, okay, actually, this doesn't make sense. Or whatever it might be. Or I also might reach out, and some people don't want family, friends, and other people to kind of get in your ear about different things. But sometimes I will do that and be like, listen, I am stuck here. What do you see that I'm not seeing? Do I think it should be this, this, and this? But so sometimes I'll do that too. But usually, if you just take a break and step away from it, do some other things, and then go back to it, you will always look at it with different eyes, and something will inspire you or set you into a different direction. And I also think too, don't be afraid to change the story. So
Mhm.
don't, we get so focused on writing one story, one story, one story. And and like if something isn't working, like try the opposite of something, like do something totally different and see if that, and sometimes that will take you in a different direction that might even be better than the one you or the path you started on.
Definitely. That is really great advice about stepping away. I feel like whenever I'm in that like hump myself where I am just like struggling to think of ideas or I'm just feeling a little burnt out creatively, it's always when I take a step back and like read a book or watch a TV show where all of a sudden an idea will randomly pop in my head and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And it's like when you're not actively trying to force yourself to think of something, that's when you end up getting your best ideas, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. And I will say too, so, and everybody has kind of their place. For some reason, mine is like in the shower. I don't know if it's because I'm like washing my hair or like whatever, but I always get that's where I get like all of my ideas. And I remember Sarah Blakely, she was the founder of Spanx. She said that she used
Mhm.
to like drive in the car, and that's like she would just go and do laps around because that's where she would get all of her ideas. So I feel like it's doing these kind of like different activities or things that don't require a lot of thought is sometimes where those ideas and stuff like that can come from.
Oh, 100%. And do you have other children's book authors that inspire you that you really closely admire that might have influenced or inspired your work in some way?
Yeah, so I tell the story a lot because it's just so fun. But when I was younger, I loved to read. I loved to read. I read all of the books. And to be honest, like my love for reading really did not start until like it was like the early 90s, and I fell in love with the Babysitters Club and Anna Martin and how she brought this group of kids together to start who had this entrepreneurial sort of like spirit and started this club. So Anna Martin will forever be the author that inspired me to that really inspired my love for reading, and something that I always reference and kind of thought back on. And when I decided to start writing my this children's book series, I just kind of kept thinking back at the books that she wrote, which were chapter books, so different than the picture books that I've published and developed. But
Mhm.
she was great, and I was fortunate enough that when I was in fourth grade, my grandmother took me to the mall, and I actually had the opportunity to meet her.
Oh,
So
amazing.
I know. So I had her sign something so random. I don't even have it anymore, but I have forever in my mind like the memory of me and my grandmother waiting and meeting Anna Martin, the author of the book. And so that's definitely where mine like stemmed from. But there's so many great authors out there today. Oliver Jeffers is like a pretty amazing illustrator author. His books are fabulous. He does The Day the Crayons Quit. So I love a lot of the books that just have like random objects and giving them personalities and things like that.
Yes, definitely. And now that you're coming out with your debut chapter book series, I'm curious to hear how that has been different than doing picture books, like making the switch if it's been pretty similar, if there have been differences that you've noticed along the way.
I mean, it's a huge difference. I actually haven't even announced this yet, so this is the first announcement that anybody's even heard about this, which is really exciting, and it's something that is still in development. We're hoping that it'll come out in spring of 2026. It's something that I'm still self-publishing, but really, I really wanted to do this because sometimes I feel like whether it's in picture books or even beginning chapter books or chapter books, young adult or whatever, sometimes characters and storylines are developed and as a kid or as a teenager, you really fall in love with these characters or storyline, and you
Mhm.
age out of them, and then that's where that ends. And so, like for me, I read the Babysitters Club all through, elementary and middle school, and eventually moved on to other books. Now, as an adult, I'm like, I would love to see where those gals ended up, and so I just think about how can I carry the spirit of party planning and celebrating all these kids that have loved Betty, and how can I, as they're learning to read, more uh, move into that next genre, how can I follow them too, and like
Mhm.
still like kind of keep that going in a way that resonates with that age group. But writing, so really, this next book I'm working on, it's a beginning chapter book. So there will be illustrations still in it, obviously not as many as like these full picture book spreads. Um, I mean, it's a lot more writing. It is
Mhm.
a lot more writing. I was never the best writer growing up. It's something that I really have to work hard at and develop and make sure that I have the right editorial team kind of in place. Um, the ideas are always there, but I feel like the editing, I think you want to make sure is accurate and correct. But
Mhm.
it's a lot more writing. I mean, it's like 80 pages compared to it was 24 pages, I think, of like copy from before. So it's a lot more writing and it's a different age group. So knowing your reader and like where they're at and what their level is and understanding sort of that and talking at their level different. it's different where I am in my life, and it's that age group is really important. So this age group will be 8 to 12 is really like this next block that my next book will kind of focus on.
Hmm. And that's what I was going to say is like one of the most impressive things about this new work that you're coming out with is the fact that like you're being able to be flexible and adaptive to changing from writing to like the lower level reading levels for the picture books to now getting into the 8 to 12 range. And so having that depth and flexibility to meet your readers where they are in terms of their skills, I think is really awesome.
I'm really excited. I've always had this idea of making a concept cross-generational. So that way, like too, if someone's buying something from a buying standpoint, they
Hmm.
can buy, Betty for the younger child, and then maybe they buy Patty the party planner for the older kid. And there is a link in Patty that would make sense. And even though Betty isn't the main character of the story, it is a kid. Betty
Hmm.
still inspires something, like there is a moment of connection there that kind of links it together, where it makes sense without me giving too much away. But I'm really excited to see where it could go and how much further it can happen. Hopefully it inspires other people that have like ideas to kind of branch out and try other genres as well, because I feel like brands and ideas, they get so developed and they have, I mean, you have the opportunity to like venture into another area, and there is a way to grow that storyline throughout somebody's life.
Totally. And I think one of the coolest things about being a writer and an author is that you're not tied to the traditional 9 to 5 working hours. And so I'm wondering if you tend to have more of like a structured writing schedule, or if you tend to write and work as inspiration comes to you and when your creativity is at its highest moment.
I think well, so for me, I'm much more of a morning person than a night
Mhm.
person. That's where I like can get all of my work done. For me, I am so busy right now between managing my twin boys, and my husband and I have so much happening with the kids. I'm launching my own event agency, so it's like I've got my events and clients and things like that. So it's really just carving out time, but that's why you have to give yourself deadlines. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like, okay, I have to have this done by October 1, whether it exists or not, like just making myself like have a deadline for different reasons and different things is really important. But right now, mine is a little bit more loose. But I just try to like structure time based on what I have going on that week to ensure that I hit this deadline of like August 15th is a deadline that I have given myself
Yeah.
for the chapter book and where we're at with the development. So
Hmm. Yeah, that's great advice. And for anyone who's listening to this episode who is interested in writing their own book, whether it's a picture book or a chapter book or even adult novel, I mean, any type of writing really that they're interested in, what advice would you have for them?
I would just say, obviously do it. So anybody that I have talked to that's like, I'm thinking of doing this, it's like just you will never regret developing a book. You will never regret it. And this is a product and something that like can leave a legacy with your family, friends, and literally can live. It will live longer than you. So
Hmm.
I think about that and see that with my kids that I had this idea, developed it. It is published. It is in the world. It's an existing thing that can live on the shelves forever. And so, if anybody has an idea that they feel passionate about, take the steps and the time to do it. And it doesn't have to cost millions of dollars. Like there's so many ways to do it now, where there are students that are artists that are trying to get experience, and working closely with one of them is a way to do it, or working with an agency if you do want to invest a little bit more on one side. So there's a million ways to do it. But just take the steps. There are so many different programs out there. I offer consulting services on my website
Hmm.
and meet with people all of the time to try to do that. But just anytime you have those ideas, just write them down, right? Get everything down on paper, and just give yourself a deadline to get it done, because you will never regret publishing a book as long as it's appropriate. But so yeah, but I really do believe that. So
Yeah, I love that. And as we get closer towards the end of this episode, I'd love to ask our guests what their favorite local businesses are to support. So, knowing that you're in the Charlestown area, I'm curious to hear the spots that you love to frequent and shop
Oh my gosh. Well, Charlestown, we're so lucky because
at.
it is booming over here. There are so many wonderful places. So, and they have all been incredibly supportive of me and of Betty. So, I'm really excited. So, at Monument Restaurant in Charlestown and Waverly Restaurant, the back of the menus at the restaurant are Betty coloring pages. So I actually have partnered with them. I dine there all of the time myself, and at Prima, if my husband and I are looking for a fancier night out. We shop at Junebug and Place and Gather are fabulous stores. Mockingbird and Kids is has some new ownership right now, so that is a beautiful kids store. Henry Bear Park is over at Hood in Hood Park in Charlestown, so that's like a big toy store. They carry Betty. That's really great as well. And then what else? Where else do we like to go? Brewer's Fork has just like the most fabulous pizza. And I'm trying to think, where else do I shop? Monroe Home is like a stunning home goods store with just fabulous things. So we're really lucky. I shop frequently. People see me all of the time out and about. And KB Collection is a really great boutique store as well.
Amazing. Such good suggestions. I love that you kind of covered all the different things people can consider from like home goods to children's clothes to food. So many good suggestions there.
Yeah, good, 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 good. Yeah, Charlestown, we're really lucky. There's a lot of really great places, and it's a close community. Everybody's been very supportive. So,
Yes, absolutely. Lindsay, this has been such a good episode, and I've really enjoyed having you come on the show to share everything that you've done in your writing journey. And now I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
sure. So, anyone that's interested in learning more about the Confetti Yeti can head to theconfettiyeti.com. Anyone that's interested in consulting services for publishing can also book a time with me there. And you can also follow me on social media at Confetti Cadigan or at the Confetti Yeti. So we also have our own handle for Betty as well.
Perfect. And I'll link to those places in the show notes that our listeners can click through and connect with you from there. But thank you so much again for coming on today's podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Ashley. It was so lovely chatting with you.